Is it? I wasn't sure if I should do landscape or portrait. Uh, yeah,
We
portrait.
just we, we just found out the hard way.
Yeah,
How
all
you
right.
doing?
No,
How
I'm
you
good. How
doing?
are you? I'm so sorry.
Oh no,
Giving
no, that was
myself.
good. That was one of the most interesting introductions to an episode so far, I think.
You know what threw me off? It was when I joined, it said we recommend landscape. So I was like, okay. I did initially have it portrait.
I'll submit that to the feedback form at the end. They're always asking me how I enjoyed the service. I'll tell them they've got their
Yeah.
instructions a little bit off. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. You've actually got so 2 points here. You are only the second Australian guest,
Oh, I love
and
that.
you're the first called Emily.
Oh,
So
nice. That's
you got
surprising considering it's such a common name.
yeah, a gold and a silver medal there,
Yeah, I
all in the
love
first
that.
minute.
There you go.
Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you sparing the time. And
No, not at all. Thanks so much for asking me.
yeah, I came across you and your work through Stunner. I
I
know you were
thought
doing
so.
a bit of work up there, and
Yeah,
yeah, obviously it really caught my eye. And I don't know if you know much or anything about MPLH, but it used to be a magazine
yes.
basically, and although the written word was very much like a focal point of it, art and photography and the people
Hmm.
creating those works were one of the main pillars of it. So
Yeah,
the bulk of the people that I have on this podcast are creatives or people using the game at a grassroots level kind of thing. And
yeah.
so yeah,
Well,
it
I
seemed like
recognize the artwork. Sorry to interrupt you. The
oh no, no,
artwork
you're
behind
good.
you.
This
I've
one?
seen that in Stunner, yeah.
Oh yeah, so
And
that was one of our pull-out magazines.
yeah, it always catches my eye when I walk in, to be honest. Because usually, whenever I walk in, I'm just like looking around before I go down and paint. And I'm just like standing there staring at everything on the wall, and that always catches my
I'm sure Carlos will be delighted to hear that, the guy that
eye.
created it. So you're based in Manchester.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, for 2 years now, which is
Nice.
crazy, to be honest, that it's already gone that quick.
Why, out of interest, did you choose Manchester and kind of avoid where everyone else goes when they land from Australia and go to
Oh,
London?
well, that was actually, like a huge reason as to why. I didn't want to kind of go somewhere where I would have, I guess, the comfort of like people that I knew or like a lot of Australians around me. Not to say that there's lots of Australians in Manchester as well. I've met loads. But I just have a lot of people that I know there already, and I kind of wanted to make sure I was forced to throw myself into a situation where I, would be making friends with locals and people from Manchester or from the UK. And that has been the case for me as well. So, and then also, a lot of people do ask, like, why Manchester and why not Liverpool? Because I am a Liverpool fan. And I feel like that's a question I've answered a lot. But it, for me, it was, as an Australian, like Australia is huge, and the distance between Manchester and Liverpool is literally the same distance as where I used to live in Melbourne to getting into Melbourne City. So for me, it just felt like wherever I lived, I was so close to it anyway. But also, I'm kind of glad I didn't move to Liverpool, which is going to sound insane, because I absolutely love it there and I love going. But because I've been in Manchester for 2 years now, the novelty of it all has worn off, and it just feels like, it, not that it feels like home, but it just feels like looking around like your hometown. Like it's just, I'm so used to my surroundings now that when I go to Liverpool, it just still has that special feeling, if that makes sense. And when things
Yeah,
have got tough here, because Liverpool was always on my mind when I imagined what it would be like for me moving to the UK. If I've ever been in a bad spot or I'm kind of down and questioning what I'm doing, when I do go to Liverpool or I get the chance to go to Anfield, it's kind of grounding for me. It just reminds me of like why I'm doing this. So in a way, yeah, I guess I am glad I didn't move there, and perhaps I could. in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kept it like a sacred space for you, I guess, in some
Yeah,
ways.
yeah, absolutely.
So sticking with Liverpool, the little I know about you, looking at your site, your client list boasts, and it is a good boast because there's Liverpool on there, Optus, which for
Yeah,
the UK and US listeners is a pretty big deal rather
yeah,
in Australia. Prime, New Balance, Porto, and Barcelona.
yeah,
So that's a pretty cool client list.
yeah. It's
I'm
crazy still
interested.
even hearing it.
Yeah, I'm interested in going back to the start and
Mm,
learning about the path that took you to that client list, if that's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started painting, I'll go right to the very beginning, but I'll try to keep that part short. I started painting just before COVID. It was like, or maybe it was
That's
just as
it.
it started happening. Yeah, yeah. But I
Are
had
you
been
serious?
yeah, yeah. I haven't been painting for quite long, if when you think about it. But I did grow up drawing, so I've always been really creative and artistic. And I the weird thing was when I wanted to start painting, initially I wanted to just paint landscapes, and whether that was me kind of trying to avoid the difficulties that would come with painting faces, even though I was experience with drawing them. You know, painting was a completely new territory, and I thought landscapes may be more forgiving. But when I did start, I ended up just going with portraits because I knew how to draw faces. So I started off with just painting movies, and I did always have the idea that I wanted to kind of paint football celebrations, but I really was just a bit scared too because it was a different kind of emotion that you're trying to capture. And so yeah, I started painting films and like music. Like I did a Red Hot Chili Peppers painting. I did a painting of Loyal Kana, and then I initially really wanted to do a Virgil van Dijk painting. And then what ended up happening was Liverpool won the league, and we were in lockdown in Melbourne, and the lockdown was really, really strict and really, really lengthy in Melbourne. And I had nothing to do, no one to celebrate with, and I had a spare canvas that I had already prepped and it was ready to go. So I just picked a picture that I wanted to paint, and at that time it was just something I was doing for fun. I was still working my full-time job. I just happened to have extra time because I was working from home. And so, yeah, I sat down, did the painting, kind of surprised myself because it was definitely out of my comfort zone. You know, I did the painting was of Trent, Jordan Henderson, and then Robbo, and there was a lot going on. I think it was a bit challenging for my first ever football painting, but yeah, I did it, and then I just was going to keep it for myself. Like I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I just wanted it for me. And my friend, he convinced me to post it on Twitter. It was like, you really need to put this on Twitter, but I wasn't using it. Like I think I had like 30 followers, and I had mainly, like my only tweets were probably about The Walking Dead when I was watching that, like in high school.
Fair
Um,
enough. Good show. Fair enough.
yeah, yeah, I actually recently just watched it again. But yeah, so I posted it on Twitter, and I sat down, I was like practicing guitar, and I had my phone just facing down next to my guitar, and then all of a sudden it just was like going off, and I thought someone was calling me, and then I picked it up, and it was just someone retweeted it. I'm not sure who kind of like got the ball rolling, but yeah, from there on it just went like a little bit viral, I guess. Like Andy Robertson ended up seeing it and he retweeted it. So that was just huge for me because I just couldn't wrap my head around that I'd done this for fun. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, one of my favorite players is retweeting my artwork. And then, yeah, I just kept up with the momentum. I was like, well, obviously people like my work. It was a huge, huge confidence boost. And I painted Virgil van Dijk, and Sport Bible reached out to me, or they shared that painting, and then that, yeah, again, it was just like one after the other. I couldn't believe it. So, um, Liverpool reached out to me they did a feature on all different artists that did Liverpool artwork, and they asked me to be one of them. And so that was probably the first big, really big thing that happened, because again, that it was so like early in, when I had started painting football, it was so early in my career for something like that to happen. Um, and then I'm just trying to think when because the first collaboration, like with a club or a brand, was the New Balance and Porter one, I think. It's been a while now. But that I think was, I had just quit my full-time job when I got that opportunity, or I was kind of considering quitting and I wasn't
What was the
sure.
job?
I was working in logistics and freight forwarding as an import supervisor, so very, very different.
Yeah, it couldn't be more different.
Yeah, yeah. It was my first job when I finished school. I was 19. I had actually gone to university for a semester to do fashion design. Did not like it at all. Like, I did not enjoy university. At the time, I had undiagnosed ADHD, so that probably had a lot to do with it as well. Um, but yeah, so I got that job as a receptionist, and then it just kind of snowballed, and I started doing more client facing stuff. And yeah, when I left, I was a import supervisor, and I actually really liked the job, to be honest. I really liked the industry, but I knew I had to kind of do something. I always had ambitions to work for myself, whether that was in, fashion or something else. Ironically, art was like never on my radar. I never wanted to be an artist and like make a living from that. So it's kind of crazy that I've ended up here.
Yeah, what I'm interested, like with the logistics role,
Mm.
that you enjoyed that. So you're
Yeah.
naturally creative, and you always have been creative from when you
Yeah.
were young. And you've gone
Yes.
into uni and studying a creative subject,
Mhm.
which didn't work for you at all.
No.
And then you've gone into an industry and a role that, yeah, is the antithesis of creativity,
Yeah.
but enjoyed it. Have you ever kind of pondered on why? Like, what
I
was it
think
about that you enjoyed so much?
I think what it was that I was like super young. Like, I was 19 when I got the job there. And again, I had no expectations of what I wanted out of that job. I never really, like, I genuinely had no idea what freight forwarding was. Like, I remember having to Google like freight forwarding when I got the job interview because I just had no idea. So yeah, I definitely didn't think I would be there for as long as I was. But like I was saying, I was so young and I just saw myself grow so much as a person. And my boss was just really, really amazing. And she pushed me to do so many things that I never could have imagined that I would do. She was really, yeah, she was like very much like girl power, like really wanted, the girls in the office to like go for it. And I think that's probably why I enjoyed it, because by the time I left, like there were a few things I had done that I just thought like, oh my God, like I can't believe I actually like had the balls to do that.
Does that instill a bit of confidence then for you to then make the steps that you've made further down the line? Because you've got
Yeah,
the data, I guess, to draw on.
for sure. Like, there was one thing that I like can recall that has really like helped me so much in my life, like whether it's been in like other job interviews or like even just things like this, like speaking to people and speaking on camera, was my boss. There was like the company that I worked for was like a global uh, freight forwarding company, global logistics company. So they've got offices everywhere. And there was like a big management meeting that they were doing in Bangkok. And at the time, I was just working as an account manager, customer service type of role. I was 21, and my boss asked me to like go to Bangkok and represent the Australian branch. And I remember like when she asked me, I was thinking like, are you sure? Like, why do you want me to do this? And she was like, I think you'd be really good at it. Like, I think it would really like get you out of your comfort zone. And I ended up doing it. I went and I like did really well there. I really surprised myself. And that has like just helped me so much. That was really nerve wracking, and so scary that there's, I do get nervous about things sometimes. And like, again, like I've had other job interviews and we could talk about that because I did have a break with painting, like when I moved here, but not much really like scares me after doing that because that was just so far out of my comfort zone at the time. And it's,
Sounds
yeah,
like
definitely helped a lot.
yeah, it sounds like she was a really influential figure in
Yeah,
your
she
development.
was, yeah, she was amazing. Like not just as a boss, even like just on a personal level as well. Like she really did help me a lot. Um, so yeah, very grateful to have had her.
Yeah, well, from my experience, they are few and far between. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
lucked out getting one in your first job.
yeah,
Good
I
work,
know.
really good work.
Yeah, it was lucky.
So you've started, just to jump back slightly, you've
Yeah,
started painting during just before lockdown, just before the
yeah.
pandemic. You were creative as a kid, always drawing.
Hmm.
Why the break from then until lockdown? Was it just kind of
Oh,
life as
just
your life
life.
kind of gets, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't. I from when I started painting was actually, yeah, when I started just drawing anything again. Really, like I from high school, I outside of university, like the semester that I did, um, I wasn't sketching or I wasn't really doing much creative stuff at all. Um, and again, like it just helped being in lockdown and not having much to do. I know, like it was obviously on as a whole, like it was a horrible thing, but I think for some people and people like me, it did bring out like a lot of, amazing new ideas and, businesses. And, for me, it was the art. I don't think I would have painted had that not have happened, which, you know, again, it sounds horrible to say, but it is just the fact of it
no,
because when I was, at my job that I was at that we were just talking about, that was based in the city center, and I mentioned I was living like 45 minutes away from the city. My entire journey, like to and from work, was about 4 hours. So by the time I got home, I really didn't have enough spare time to do anything. I'd get home, I'd have my dinner, and I'd maybe watch TV, play some PlayStation or something, and then go to bed. So
yeah, and then we just go around again, right? And that's the loop.
yeah, yeah,
I think, yeah, I don't think it does sound bad for you
mm,
to have drawn some positives from that
yeah,
time. I
that's
think,
true.
yeah, I mean, everybody was having their own experience, right? And
Yeah.
it's for many, and
Hmm.
yeah, yourself included, it was an opportunity to pause, I
Hmm.
guess, and rediscover parts of yourself that get lost in the day to day, just being caught up
Yeah.
in the cycle of getting through a week.
Hmm.
So to have the opportunity to slow down and for
Mm.
your brain to just catch up and think, oh, you know what? Yeah, I used to really like painting.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think I'll start that again. I've got the time on my hands now.
and at the same time, it's also why I quit my job because, there was talks about like returning back to the office and going back full time. And I just thought there is no way I'm going to be able to juggle this again with that, that commute. There is absolutely no way. And, yeah, so I guess I just decided I'll just give it a try. I'll quit and see what happens. If I kind of thought like if it didn't work out, like I had, I wasn't ending on bad terms. I had I had really good relationships with my manager there and, everyone that had worked there that I felt that if it didn't work out, I could have gone back to it. So yeah, and I was also fortunate that I was living at home as well. I was living with my parents. So, um, the only expenses that I really had was like my car, which I was financing a stupid purchase of, of me when I think I was like 20, 21 when I got,
A good
actually, no, I
idea at
would
the
have been
time, yeah.
younger. It was so stupid of me. Like I did
A
not
good
need to
idea at the
do
time.
that.
You get
Yeah, yeah. That's why I
yeah. It's
did
one of
love the
those you have to do
car.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You learn from that. We all do
Yeah, you
those
do.
things. Yeah, I mean, I remember once, um, yeah, my first job, I bought a pair of straw shoes for about £160,
Yeah.
and I was like 19, and I
Yeah.
was like, these are the sort of shoes that like 50-year-old very wealthy men would wear on like a
Yeah,
to a to like a I don't know, like a polo event or something like
yeah.
that. And I was living in Romford, which I don't know if you know that, but it's just
No,
like
I don't.
it's a suburb in Greater London. And
Okay, yeah,
I had no business owning a pair of shoes like that, but that purchase
yeah,
was kind of indicative of what you do when you're young and you've got a bit of money in your pocket, and you
yeah.
just think,
It's I
I'll
look
get
back on
this.
it too. It's crazy. Even like some of the like tops that I have, like football tops, like that. The money that I spent on them when I was living at home versus like now when I'm not living at home, and obviously I've got so much more expenses. I just look back and think like it would be so nice to like just be living at home again and not have a care in the world. But
Yeah, yeah,
that's what happened. So when I moved here, I was moving out of home at the same time. So I hadn't lived on my own in Australia. I just kind of thought I actually don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I thought like it would. I I just kind of went for it, and I looking back, like I was a bit. I'm kind of glad I did it at the age I did because I think if I was like 27 thinking about it, I probably would have. I don't know if I would have done it. I definitely would have thought about it a lot more.
yeah. It's like you kind of you lose a bit of the um like
Spontaneity, I
the
guess.
spontaneity. Yeah, you just kind of pick up more responsibilities and
Yeah,
or baggage as you
yeah,
go through
yeah,
life, right? And then all of a
yeah,
sudden you got to think for at least 10 seconds longer before making a decision, and that even that
yeah,
10
yeah,
seconds can make a massive difference. But yeah, you've got to do these things whilst you can, right? And
yeah, definitely.
so
No regrets though.
no, that's good. I mean, yeah, you're living in uh well, one of the finest countries in the land, in
Yeah.
the world. What can we say, right? As long as you don't read the papers,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
it.
It's absolutely fine. So it's really interesting that you like once you had rediscovered painting, your
Hmm.
art, you wasn't going to let it go when the world started to open up and the office
Yeah.
starts to open up. You had obviously sacrificed that for one reason or another before, with either knowingly
Mm.
or not. But once you had it back,
Hmm.
that was a non-negotiable for you, which is really
Yeah.
interesting.
I think it was, like we spoke about, it had been so long since I had created anything, and I had actually been like I really wanted to try painting for a long time. Like I think I was kind of on and off thinking about it for about 2 years, and I was just really scared of trying it and being really bad at it, which sounds stupid. Like I should have just tried it, but timeline wise, I think everything, happened as it was supposed to. But it, I always loved drawing, but when I sat down and I started painting, it was almost like something clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is what was missing. Like it felt so different to sitting down and drawing, which I still like to do from time to time, like as a break from, painting, which is a lot more time consuming versus like the quick sketches that I do. But it just felt so much more relaxing and like therapeutic. And yeah, I knew I kind of had to keep going with it. And I guess just like having a taste of being like feeling like it was so close within my grasp to be able to make a living doing something that I was, you know, actually passionate about and like a talent of mine. Yeah, I knew I just had to try, and I guess I've been doing it ever since. But I did stop for about a year while I was here, or maybe a little bit less than a year.
Was that just to kind of steady the ship and settle in once you got
Yeah,
here? Yeah.
yeah. I think I had really realistic expectations of what moving overseas was going to be like. I whenever I would think about it in Australia, I would always kind of think about how I knew it was going to be extremely difficult, but like I just didn't care. Like I just wanted to do it, and I know it's going to be hard. I know I'm probably going to cry every day, for a while, but I just wanted to do it. But then, despite like knowing that, being here was just I can't even explain like how much it just like shocked me with how I was handling it all because I I think probably what I didn't take into much consideration was, I always thought I love being by myself. Like I am very introverted. I love like going out when I do go out, but I very much like being in my own space. And because of that, I just thought I will be fine. Like I'll just, I'll be okay. I'll be on my own, like living on my own. It's fine. But I was also painting at home. And, when I moved to Manchester, I couldn't get a studio anywhere. So I had to get like a two-bedroom flat. And I was painting at home. So I didn't really, when I paint for hours, didn't really have the opportunity to go out and meet people because I was so busy like trying to paint. And also in the beginning, I was just like on a high, exploring, wandering around, and kind of, it was a bit of a holiday in the beginning. But being alone, like in your home country, where you could just like get in the car, or you're living with your parents, like I was, and you can just go speak to someone or go see your friends, versus being alone in a country where even when you're not, alone at home, you just feel alone all the time. It's like two completely different things. And I mentioned before that I have ADHD, so there was just a lot that I was dealing with in that regard. I was having a lot of trouble, with my GP trying to get my prescription for my medication. So there was 6 months where I didn't have my medication at all. And I think that definitely played a big role in me just kind of having to take a step back. And I wasn't enjoying, because of everything else that was going on, I wasn't enjoying painting. Like in fact, like I actually started to really hate it. And when I stopped, I fully thought that I wasn't actually going to ever paint again. I was like, I don't think I can do this again. I don't know if it was just like I had kind of my how I felt about painting changed because of how I was feeling at the time. But yeah.
What does that? How does that manifest itself when you're going through a period? When your ADHD is, I guess,
Hmm.
in control, for want of a better
Well,
word.
to be honest, like even now, I feel like my ADHD is still in control of my life. And that's probably because I'm like having to navigate I'm not on my medication at all anymore. Since that whole experience, because I did eventually get my prescription after 6 months. I had to get re-diagnosed privately in the UK, which cost like almost £1,000. It was a nightmare. Um, and then I got on the medication
Ironically, you
again.
need to sell a painting to pay for that, and you
Yeah,
didn't want to paint. It
yeah,
would
yeah,
have been really
exactly.
handy if you wasn't sick of the sight of your paintbrushes at that point.
Yeah, and I truly was sick. It's funny that you say that, because I remember saying to people like, I genuinely don't ever want to look at a paintbrush. But to answer your question, it just, for me, like the biggest thing is like how inconsistent my moods can be. Like I could have a week where I'm like feeling really happy and like really stable, or then the next week I could be just feeling really low, lower energy. And it's also very different. ADHD manifests really differently in women than it does in men. So for
Right,
women, I think we more commonly experience like executive dysfunction, which is where your brain just can't get you to do the things that you want to do. And it doesn't have to just be, mundane tasks like, oh, I can't be bothered doing the dishes. Like I could really, really, really want to do a painting and want to sit down and start a painting, but my brain just doesn't let me. So I've been having to learn how to just get myself to do things, while also trying to not be so hard on myself and beat myself up if there are times where like I just can't. And I think as well, it I feel like I've noticed my symptoms a lot more because I am here, and I'm living somewhere else. I don't have my family with me, or it's just been really interesting seeing how I've been functioning here with my ADHD versus in Australia. But I was also diagnosed really late as well. So I was only diagnosed about a year before I moved here. So I think I was,
right.
still kind of learning a lot about myself.
Yeah, coming to terms with that.
Hmm.
and then I guess the process of that being disturbed by the move and going through it all again.
Yeah. I'm not sure
It,
if I answered your question properly. It was a bit of a hard one to answer, but I hope I kind of somewhat
oh
gave
no,
you an
yeah,
idea.
I mean, that's the beauty of conversations. They just kind of
Yeah.
go, they go where they go. It's almost like cruel in a way that
Mm.
that stops you from doing something that you've obviously naturally. It's like two parts of you fighting against
Yeah.
each other, right? You've got a natural talent, the fact that you can pick up a
Mm.
paintbrush in 2019 and think, I'm going to give oil painting a go.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got that artistic gene running through you, or like everyone has, but there are degrees of
Yeah.
quality. I know art is subjective in many ways, but
Yeah.
there's
I think I've
there is
definitely, sorry to interrupt you. I
no, no, you
probably
could.
yeah, definitely have like highlighted like the negative sides of it, but there are like there are so many parts of like having ADHD that I like really love. And like, you know, before I got diagnosed, I just thought that was my personality. And again, like all the things that were hard for me, I thought they were just personality flaws. But like now that I have the diagnosis, I know that it is the ADHD that makes me the way that I am. And, you know, when I was working full time and I was painting, I would get so hyper fixated on painting. So I find I'm get really hyper in the evenings. Like I will have an energy burst in the evening, and often, you know, in Australia, I would finish work at like 5 p.m., start painting at about 8 p.m., and I could paint. Like, there was one time where I painted from 8 p.m. to like 9 a.m. the next morning, and I had to call in sick for work because I didn't sleep. But I just was so focused, like I couldn't put it down. So there are times where, yes, I might not be able to get myself to do it, but then there are other times where I can't get myself to stop, and I can really like focus on things, and it also just makes me a really passionate person. Like I think all the interests and hobbies that I have, like I like am obsessed with, and I'm just so passionate about. Like with any, like I love movies. I love, you know, sitting down and watching films. I love video games, and I feel like all the things in my life, like obviously including football and art, like I'm just so passionate about. And I think a lot of that has to do with my ADHD too, because I just get really hyperfixated on things.
It's really interesting. I've never heard it spun into a positive before. Usually, it's kind of
Yeah.
delivered as a negative.
Mm.
It's quite cool that you see it, see both sides of it. It can work
Yeah.
with you or against you.
I think
Um,
it's good even just talking about it now, because like just with how hard things were in the beginning when I moved here, and it's still not easy. I have definitely been focusing on the negatives, so it was a nice little reminder for me too that there's definitely so much about ADHD that I think can be so amazing, and if you can really like hone in on like the good aspects of it, then yeah, it is. It's like the cliche saying is it can be a superpower. So, yeah,
I was just thinking that harnessing it as a superpower, like
yeah.
rather than oh, I've got ADHD.
Well, what's good about
I've
it
got
too is,
ADHD, which is
yeah,
it's the tone you put on it.
yeah, it's like, oh, I've got ADHD. It's like, no, I've got ADHD. Well, my boyfriend has ADHD too, and he's been diagnosed for a lot longer than I have, and obviously, as I said, it manifests differently in women. But I think like him having it has been so helpful too, because he gets the way I am, but also like I, you know, sometimes I'll come home and like he'll get home from work and he just like gets up and does the things that he has to do. Like he'll do the chores that he's been putting off, or doesn't even put them off because he's just learned how to manage his ADHD, and he's not on medication for it either. But that's been really helpful to me too, because I would always say to him like, how are you just getting yourself to do that? Like how are you how can you do it? And he would just say like, you have to understand, like I've been diagnosed for a lot longer than you have. Like I've learned how to kind of function with it, and it helps me a lot because I'll see him behave and I'll be like, okay, it really is that easy. Like I can just kind of change the way I am. I don't have to just give in to it and like kind of I don't want to say use ADHD as an excuse, but kind of, yeah, allow it to dictate my life.
And I guess every time you like take an action that goes against what ADHD is trying to
Mm,
stop, you're chipping away at it, right? And it becomes
yeah,
easier and easier to make those choices that oppose it every time. You
yeah,
build up a
exactly.
resilience towards it. Do you
Because a
notice
lot
like
of
the?
it.
No,
Sorry,
sorry,
go
go on.
on.
I was just going to ask if you notice a difference in your painting. Do you do you notice the? I don't know if like mood is the right word to use, but do you, do you notice or can you see different emotions in works that you've created when you maybe had to swim against the tide to get it done, so to speak, versus those where it's come easily?
I wouldn't say the artwork itself I've noticed a difference in, but definitely in my, I guess, in my, how do I say it? My ability, I guess, like what my paintings can look like. And I think that's why, again, like it was so important for me to have that break because when I am down about it, my paintings just look completely different. Like I'll use my messy painting, for example. That was like the breaking point for me because that was such a challenging piece and it was almost a year or maybe like 6 or so months into being in the UK that I started that. And I was just, that was like peak me. I was actually just going back on my ADHD medication. I could have messed the timelines up there, but I think during that painting, I had just started taking my ADHD medication again, and I had like such an opposite reaction when I started taking it again. And I was kind of starting to hate painting, and my where I left off was like I had done like the whole like the portrait aspect. I had painted the people, but the right side of the background um, was like the last bit that I was doing. And I started with the left side of the background, if that makes sense. So started with the left side, then painted the portrait, painted messy, and then went back to the right side. So at that point, it had been like weeks after doing the initial, left side of the background. And it looked so bad and so different. Like it was not matching at all. And then, I actually thought I was never going to finish that painting. I only finished it at the start of this year. And when I went back to it and I was in such a better mind frame, it was like, I was like, oh my God, like it was that simple. Like I fixed it in literally like 20 minutes. Like the part that I was like so stressed about, I fixed it so quickly. And I was like, why was I so stressed? Like, I can't believe I let that like completely break me, which it did. But there were so many other aspects as to why it was doing that. But yeah, I think now for me, it's the most important thing is like really trying to be conscious of my emotions and like it's so easy for me to spiral in my head because like I just have like 100 million thoughts going at once and like one if I get one negative thought again like this is where the hyperfixation comes into play like I can hyperfixate on that thought and just spiral very quickly so like I've really had to learn how to avoid that and like how to stop myself from spiraling and like when I do have a negative thought just being able to like accept that I've had that thought, but just, not going any further with it. And it's not easy. Like I still, sometimes I might spiral a little bit, but that break and not having painted for so long was probably the best thing for me because like I was able to just reflect so much on what wasn't working, what I should have been doing that I wasn't. And it's, yeah, this time around just feels a lot better painting again. Like it just feels like I'm a lot more hopeful. I don't know, things have been going pretty well as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, giving yourself space from something. I mean, in your case, painting, but it happens with anything, right? You put a bit of distance between yourself and the thing,
Yeah.
and you're able to see the thing more clearly than if you were stood right in front of it. Removing
Yeah.
yourself from the problem removing yourself from the problem helps you
Mhm.
solve the problem sometimes. it's really interesting what you say about the one negative thought and just catching on to it. We're predisposed to kind of linger on those as it is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's without ADHD
Yeah.
coming into the equation. I guess it, you know, yeah, we.
Naturally, we
I'm not
can
sure.
look.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the numbers, but there's something even like anything on a negative basis, even the people you're around. I've got a
Yeah.
book over there somewhere on relationships. It's called Friends. So I just read it
Okay.
from the show. It's called, but it talks about the impact of the people in your life. It's not necessarily about friends, but all relationships that we have.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if you live next door to a really, you know, I guess like a rude or what, you know, emotionally aggressive person or whatever, you're
Mm-hmm.
naturally more predisposed to absorb that energy than positive. Even though you will absorb
Yeah.
it, the percentage wise is
Mm-hmm.
always leans in the favor of the negative. So you're always swimming against that tide, to use that phrase again as it is.
That's
But
so
then
interesting.
your tide's a little stronger
Yeah.
that you're kicking against. So it's like I'm guilty myself. I have been guilty myself of the negative
Yeah.
self-talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of picked up a little mantra that I try to say in the moment. If it
Okay.
just
I would love
something
to hear
comes
it.
into my mind, I'm not even embarrassed to say this. I
No, not
used
at
to be a
all.
little bit. I just say to myself,
Mm-hmm.
"Thank you for bringing that to my attention, but I'm busy at the moment,"
Oh my
and
God, I love that.
and
I love
and then I
that.
just move on, and because it's just a thought, right? That's all
Yeah,
it is.
I love
And
that. And that's quite similar to what I do as well. Sorry again to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
that I often like have to do the same thing, like literally say something to myself. Like I'll be in my brain, like if a negative thought comes in, I'll be like, okay, like you've thought that. Like I'll literally be talking to myself like, okay, like you've thought about that. Like just accept it now and let it go. But I really like your version. I think I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, give it a go.
Yeah.
See how you get on. It does work. I mean, well, for
Mhm.
me anyway, because I guess, yeah, like, you know, I had a lot of insecurities around all sorts of things, and
Yeah.
you spend a bit of time trying to figure out the source of that, and then once you do, you realize that it doesn't have to impact the now.
Mhm.
Again, all easier said than done, because it is
Yeah.
actually easier to let that thought grow. Like
Yeah.
that's literally the easiest thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why it's so important to be kind on yourself
Mhm.
when you can't just let it go. You can't
Yeah.
beat
Yeah.
yourself up for
Exactly.
then, because that's what does tend to happen. The negative thought comes in, you linger on it,
Yeah.
and then you beat yourself up for
Yeah.
lingering on it and all this
Yeah.
kind of
That's it.
thing.
Half of it
And then
is that
you're gone.
beating yourself up for like what you're not doing and like or like I don't know, allowing yourself to give in to when things get a little bit too hard. Like I'm the worst for that. Like I just beat myself up about everything a lot. Like it could be with my art as well. Like I'm often like, and I think a lot of artists are too, like very critical of their work. Like I just like it's an artist thing where like when you look at your own artwork, all you can see is like the mistakes or where you went wrong or like what you want to fix. And especially like when you're working on commissions and you have deadlines, like if I, didn't have specific deadlines, it would be really difficult for me to get to a point where I can look at the painting and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that looks really good. Like there's always something that I want to change or something that I want to fix. Even now when I look at like pieces that I finished, a couple years ago, um, it's hard to figure out where I should stop because there's
How
always
do you?
something.
How do you then let that
Um,
go to the client and say, okay, yeah, I've got to.
I think it's like
What's the cue in your head?
well, for me, it's again like the deadlines help, and also just I've gotten a lot better at knowing like what areas of a portrait that I should focus more of my energy on. And not to say that I don't put the same amount of energy into all of it, but for example, like if I'm painting someone's face, it's obviously so important that I get the likeness right. So if it means that I have to put a little bit more time into painting the face, and then, whereas if you're painting fabric, no one's going to notice if the crease in the fabric doesn't look like the crease in the fabric of the photo that I'm painting. Like, as long as it looks like a crease in fabric, then it's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Fit for
and then,
purpose. right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then also just recognizing that sometimes, like, things that I see, if you were looking at my painting, you probably wouldn't be able to see what I'm looking at, because the way I've described like how I draw and how I paint, is I kind of see things in shapes, and this is something that is taught, like when you are teaching people how to draw or paint, you kind of look at shadows and highlights as shapes. So, if I'm painting a self-portrait, for example, I'm looking at the photo of me, and the light, the shadow's like hitting my face in a particular way, and it kind of looks a bit triangular, then I will replicate that shape. And when you're painting skin tones, there's like so many, different colors that go into a skin tone. Like one part might have more green undertones, and then, on this side of the face, it might have more blue hues. And sometimes, like when I finish the face and I step away, or because I've been looking at the reference of my painting as, all these different shapes, I stand back and all I can see is the shapes, and it looks like weird to me. Like I don't know if it looks so obvious that it's all these different shapes. So often, like, I'll just
Some
have to get
abstract
someone
vibes
to,
going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll just have to get someone to have a look at it, or, like in the store, like sometimes I'll get like Serge or Felina to have a look at it, and I'll just say like, does this look okay to you? And usually they're just like, yeah, I can't see what you're seeing.
The
Um,
eyes roll. They're like, yeah, it's amazing. Like, just,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they've heard,
Stop
they've,
fishing for compliments.
I said to them all the time, I said, you're going to hear a lot of me being like, I hate this. Because in the beginning stages of a painting, I'll always like, yeah, the first few days I'm looking at it, I'm like, I hate this. Like, this is the worst painting I've ever done. I don't like it. It's horrible. And then when it's done, usually I'm like, okay, like, it's good.
Do you recognize that in the moment when you're thinking that you're like, I know I'm in phase one of this piece of work and that I'll get over that in a few days? Or are you battling at that point?
Battling with it, absolutely
Right.
battling with it. Definitely. It's so weird because like I know it's the case. The only time where I've like really given into that, because I did kind of get the proportions a bit wrong. So my clock painting that I did, which was the first painting I did when I moved to the UK, I sat down, I started painting his face, and I think I'd spent like 2 days on it. And by the second day, I was like, this is just not right. Like, there is something not right about this. Like, I don't know. I was like kind of fiddling with the eyes, and like, I had spent a lot of time trying to like get the eyes to look like how the reference did, and something just was not looking right. Normally, I can fix it, but like at that point, I was just like, no. And like, I got a cloth and like all these mineral spirits, which is what you use to kind of thin down oil paint. Um, and I said to my boyfriend, because he was there while I was painting, I was like, I'm just gonna wipe this off and fucking start it again. Like, I can't look at it. And he was like, no, 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 don't. And I was like, shh. And I literally just got the cloth and like scrubbed the shit out of this painting. And I was like, I have to start again. I actually didn't think I was going to start it again, but I was like, no, I have to. Like, I've said that I'm going to do this painting. I need to do it.
How many hours had you spent on it at that point?
I want to say maybe like 20-ish hours, a bit over
20
20
hours,
hours.
and then that was it. Cut.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, I
going
had to
again.
start. And I'm glad I did, because it looked so much better the second time. And even like, I think after day one of trying it again, I was like, oh, I'm just, I don't know what it was about what I had done the first time, but this second time around, it just looks way better.
That's so
So
interesting
yeah.
because I don't know, it feels like from the outside you get to that point where I guess I'm just projecting how I imagine I would be feeling at that point if I've spent that long on doing something and I
Yeah,
decide to wipe it down. I don't think I'm even looking at that canvas again for
I thought that.
weeks, and then
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could start it again, let
Yeah,
alone produce something that I was more happy with than the original.
I thought that too, but I think what it was that it was like a pretty different idea. Like, it was a mixed media piece. I bought all these like retro football books and magazines, and I like the surface that I painted on was like a kind of like semi-transparent panel. it kind of looks like frosted glass, so you could slightly see through it. And I just really believed in like the vision that I had. Like I just thought it would be such a cool concept that I felt like I owed it to myself to just finish it. And I'm so glad I did because it's still like one of my favorite paintings that I've done.
What positives do you draw from that experience? Like you said that was for yourself.
Mm.
So do you draw positives from that where you kind of salvaged something? And do you
Yeah,
carry any of that into the next piece, or into not even just the next piece, but into other aspects of your day-to-day life?
it's definitely helped with the art because I feel like I was very much like it, I had the mindset that it would be the end of the world, like if it didn't look good, that it couldn't be fixed. And a lot of that was to do with like me still learning like different techniques with painting and like struggling a little bit if I had to paint over certain sections because I paint in one layer. I don't, you know, some artists will do like an underpainting and like just do like a rough little um underpainting of what the base should look like, so it makes it a lot easier when you do then go with like the actual colors that you want to use and the skin tones and the um all the values. But I don't do that, so I only knew how to paint when the paint was still wet, and I could then go on and like kind of blend it in together. So when it dried, I often really struggled to kind of match the tones again or like have it look how it should look, if that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
trying. It's a bit hard for me to find like the right words to explain that. But when I did that and like I tried it again with the clot one, I realized like, okay, it really isn't the end of the world if it doesn't work out. And it's made me like avoid getting to that point where because I had to do it all over again. I thought it couldn't be fixed by painting over it. I literally scrubbed it off. Um, it's made me avoid having to do that again. Like I feel like now when like even I'm painting Klopp again at the moment, and there was like one part of his face that was just like his nose I just could not get right. And I just waited for it to dry for a couple of days and I've gone over it, and yeah, I'm a lot better at fixing it that way now than having to scrub it all off.
So approaching your work with a bit more perspective, I guess,
Mm.
in knowing that that's not necessarily ruined.
Yeah.
I can come back. I don't need to
Yeah,
tear the whole
I
thing
was
down.
definitely being a drama
Put
queen,
that
and
cloth down.
I
Put that
yeah,
scrubber
yeah,
away. It's like
yeah,
one
literally.
hand pushing the other hand away.
Yeah. So it has
So
helped a lot.
when you came over and
Hmm.
painting needed to take a bit of a sidestep, and I guess you needed to find
Hmm.
work
Hmm.
and things like that in the period of settling down.
Hmm.
How did you start to reintegrate your painting practice into that? Because it had been very like it had become a non-negotiable when lockdown started to
Yeah.
wind back, and you had to
So do you
sacrifice it
mean,
again for a period. Yeah, what was the how did you reintegrate the balance between um, coming to the UK and needing to work, and
yeah,
then bringing your painting practice, which is obviously time consuming.
yeah.
Uh, how did you shift the balance back in favour towards the painting?
So I don't think I did. Because when I moved here, I was painting and I was still doing that full time. And then
Right.
I got a job for about 4 months, and I wasn't painting at all when I had that job. I had like moved in with my boyfriend and his best friend, so I had nowhere to paint. And yeah, so I definitely wasn't balancing it. Is that what you mean? Like, how did I?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess because you had to push it to one side,
mm,
but then it was always gonna come back.
yeah,
So I guess life
yeah.
seeps into the gaps, right? And then you had to find gaps that were no longer there to bring it
Hmm.
back. Just
Well,
curious how you managed that.
I just quit my job randomly. I had a really,
Brilliant.
yeah. The way I quit was I just didn't have a good experience where I was. Like there was some good things about it. I don't want to say it was all bad, but um towards the end of it, I just thought like I'm kind of wasting my time here. Like, you know, this is not beneficial to me at all. And I literally, not in, not the most professional manner. It was a Monday morning at like 12 p.m. I just put my jacket on, picked up my bag, and just left. And I didn't say anything. I just left. And I was like, I don't even feel like it's worth having the conversation, because I was so adamant. And at that time, though,
That's a
I,
punchy way to start a week.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, it was. I remember I left and I was thinking, like, what did I just do? Like, I felt really relieved. Like, I definitely felt like I made the right choice. But after a few hours, I was in bed, like, oh my God, I've just quit my job. And that was how I was paying my rent. Like, what am I going to do? So painting again was not actually on my radar at all. I didn't quit because I wanted to paint. Um, I just quit because I really was unhappy there, and I was going to look for another job. And in fact, I was applying for jobs. I was in like final stages of interviews, and then that's when Amazon reached out to me. It like literally like right before I could have potentially accepted a job, Amazon reached out, and I was just like, oh my God, this is weird, weird time. And also, I really weirdly, the day that I quit my job, after like not because I hadn't painted for so long, I was not active on socials. Weirdly, the day that I quit, 2 hours after, when I was like in bed, kind of crying and feeling sorry for myself, I had like a really amazing opportunity with a European football club that never came to fruition. But again, it was really bizarre timing. Like, I felt like something was going on from when I quit my job to when I had the Amazon one, which was the only project that I was able to do. I had like three really big opportunities. And I feel like it was kind of like the universe playing a little joke on me, being like, what are you doing? Applying for jobs, like
It
paint.
absolutely is the universe, Evan,
Yeah.
testing you basically there,
Yeah.
seeing how seriously you wanted to take this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
as
exactly.
soon as you walk out of your job, it says,
Yeah.
"Oh, good. Okay, you got the message. Here's
Yeah.
Amazon."
Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, it was so, so lucky. And it was just really, it just worked out that, Amazon, their deadline wasn't too, because often I'll have an issue where people will reach out to me for certain projects which seem like so amazing and are projects that I would absolutely love to work on, but then, I'll have like a week or two to do it. And it's just not possible, like with what sometimes like with what they're asking and how many people they might need me to be painting. My paintings in general take me about like 4 or 5 weeks depending on how big they are or what I'm doing. So yeah, I was just really lucky that Amazon's timeline worked, with me as well. And yeah, I set up, like I was painting in my living room, like I was literally painting right there. I've got a piano there, you can't see, but for a while I was just kind of, this whole room was a mess. Like, I felt really bad for my boyfriend because like I used our whole dinner table. It was very chaotic, but I got it done. So
Is that piano another creative outlet of yours, or is that your boyfriend's?
that's my boyfriend. So I play guitar. I played guitar. Guitar was like another COVID hobby for me. But like I picked it up really quickly and I was doing lessons for a year. Absolutely loved it and I miss it so, so much. I don't have a guitar here. I really want to get one, but I don't know. I'm kind of tossing up between like shipping one of my guitars from Australia over here. It might cost the same to just buy a new one. I don't know. But the piano is my boyfriend's. But because I've really missed guitar, I've like taught myself a bit of piano, so it's been really fun. Like, I know only one song, but I was quite proud
It's
of
one
myself.
more than most. One more than most people. Again, that's
Yeah,
another display of your natural creativity there, and how you seem to be able to turn your hand to
yeah,
most things,
yeah,
and you
definitely.
apply yourself. You apply yourself to these things.
Well, that's,
Um,
I think, again, the ADHD hyperfixation, because I sat down at the piano and I was like, oh my God, this is really fun. And I was just, before I knew it, I was there for hours. And like, I learned the song in like not very long. Like, I was really quite surprised, like how quickly I learned it. But it was just because I was able to sit there and I was just so, like, I was just having so much fun and I was hyper focused on it.
How hard can this be? Yeah,
I'm
give me the
definitely
music
not
sheet.
like
Oh,
a
it's
master.
fine.
I don't actually know how to use the pedals, so I kind of like have my foot on one of the pedals the whole time, which I don't think you're supposed to do because it makes all the notes start to sound a little bit muddy towards the end. But like I'm just satisfied that I know how to play the song. Like that's enough
I'm
for
the
me.
same. I'm the same with driving. My foot is on the clutch
Yeah.
pedal most of the time, and you're definitely not supposed to do that. And that is why it wears out loads. Um, one more question, because I'm conscious that I'm
No, that's
keeping you
fine.
too long. Just going back to that job that you um,
Yeah.
basically ditched on a Monday
Yeah.
morning
Yeah.
in a flourish.
Yeah.
You said that it was just you felt it was the job and a lack of enjoyment in it and being unhappy
Mhm.
there that spurred you towards that decision rather than the fact that you weren't painting.
Mhm.
But do you think there's a case for the argument that you may have felt that in any of the other jobs you were applying for? It's
Oh,
because
100%.
you wasn't
And
doing what
that's
you actually want to be doing,
a hundred
which is
percent.
painting.
I actually like took a screenshot recently of some messages that I sent my friend when I quit the job and then when I was applying for jobs. And I did message her saying, I'm not sure if I should do this. Like, I think I really want to do my art again, but I just don't know how. I think I felt like a little bit trapped in the fact that I was here in the UK. Like, I felt like I had now moved in with my boyfriend. I didn't have somewhere to paint. And I really just needed to make sure I could pay my rent. Um, so yeah, definitely that. And I do think as well, like even though I, it wasn't directly the reason that I quit my job, I did feel very unfulfilled there because I knew deep down, one, I should be painting. Two, like I felt like I was kind of letting myself down for the fact that I moved here to pursue a career in art, and then suddenly I was working in recruitment, and it was just like, you know, I didn't move here to do that. I moved here, and the job itself, like, I didn't hate. Like, it was, a fun job. I really enjoy speaking with people, and I, yeah, I didn't dislike the job, like the actual act of recruitment. But it just wasn't what I moved here to do. And people would always say to me, why are you here? Like, why are you doing this? Like, because obviously people would ask what I did, and they'd see my artwork, or like, they say like, do you have an Instagram? Like, can I follow your Instagram? And most people there would say like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you doing this? You should be doing that. And like sometimes people I would speak to, like it happened to me twice while I was working there, that I had like emailed a person that was following my art page and was like, oh, I think I follow your art page. And it must have been so weird for them being like, I'm like now doing like recruitment, and they were probably thinking like, what the hell? Like you were just.
Yeah,
So yeah, and actually when that happened, the two times that did happen to me, that's when like I kind of had a bit of an existential crisis, and I was like, yeah, I really don't know if this is what I need to be doing.
I guess you're moving away from yourself, right? Like you said, you
Mm-hmm.
came here to pursue that path,
Yeah.
and everything you were doing to that point was
Mm-hmm.
contrary to that, and you're
Mm-hmm.
unaligned, basically. And if
Yeah.
you're unaligned, it's going to come out in certain ways, and it was coming out in negative
Yeah.
feelings towards the job you're doing, and you get to the point where you're like, yeah, I've got a choice to make here, and
And that's why I
you
did it
chose, you know
again.
what, fuck this, I'm done.
No, I literally was very much like, fuck this, I'm gone. Like, I'm out of here. um, but that's definitely why I had to do it again, because I felt like at that point, I had tried so much, and at the same time felt like I didn't try hard enough. And I would have hated to have, you know, when my visa ended, gone back home and felt like I didn't give it 100%. And so I already knew what it was like to sort of feel like I had failed. So I was just like, fuck it. Like, I'll try again. Like, if it doesn't work, at least this time I know that I've tried. And like I said, like having that break to like kind of learn how to deal with like my ADHD a little bit better, and like kind of get my mental health back on track. It just made the world of a difference. So I'm really glad. Yeah, quit the job, started again.
Yeah,
Hopefully, keep going.
that's going to be the big takeaway from this one to anyone listening that is
Yeah,
slightly off their chosen path.
yeah, and also just
Emily's
like,
advice is sack it off, go for it.
yeah,
And
just
when
put
I had a
yourself
chat with
first.
a guy called Pete recently. He was
Yeah.
former design director at Nike,
Oh wow.
and he quit and he opened up a football bar in Portland, over in Oregon,
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
his attitude was similar to yours. Just
Hmm.
go for it. What's the worst that could happen? If it doesn't work out, you can always just go and find another job.
That's
And
it. It's
it's not,
so
yeah.
true. And
There's
also like, sorry, go on.
no, go on.
I was
No,
just
no,
gonna
go for it.
say that I think for a while, like a lot of it for me was like fear of what people would think. Like I remember thinking like when I took the break to like just get a job and like get back on my feet, and also a lot of it was to do with just like meeting people and like feeling like I was being social, and anyway, so I was like really scared of what people would think. I was scared that like I wouldn't be posting, or like what are people going to think that I've just stopped? I've moved to the UK. I felt like there was so many eyes on me, but at the same time, like no one actually gives that much of a shit about me. So why was I caring so much? Like I was acting like, everyone was going to know or like think I'd failed, but no one actually gives a shit. Like, how many times do we look at other people and think, like, oh my God, like that didn't work out? Like, I can't remember really one person that I've seen on social media that's like stopped doing something or like has gone back to it that I can like actually name, because we don't, no one really cares.
Yeah, people are not
So,
looking as closely as we think.
no. So you just gotta like, yeah, put yourself first, and like you said, like with Pete, like just go for it, because you don't want to just, you know, I just kept thinking like one day when I'm like, hopefully knock on wood, like old and I'm dying, like I'm not gonna look back and think like I'm so glad I stayed at the recruitment job because I was worried.
I don't know if
So
anyone will ever say that. If there is
yeah,
someone that says that, I'd like to meet them and ask what it is
yeah.
about recruitment they love so much.
And not to diss people in recruitment, I feel like that sounds like I'm dissing people in recruitment, but just for
No,
me,
no.
like for my experience, like I was never going to look back and be like, I'm so glad I did that instead of my art. Like you know,
Yeah, you could insert anything in place of recruitment there, and the same would apply. Any
yeah,
recruitment
yeah,
consultants
exactly.
listening, nothing against you. It's a good, honest
No,
living.
nothing at all.
Just not for you. It just wasn't for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, it definitely wasn't for me.
Um, that feels like a really organic place to wrap this up.
Yeah,
And I'm really glad that I'm really glad to hear that you pursued something that is true to your heart and that you
yeah,
are thriving from it. I'm actually curious. Actually, one more thing. Sorry,
yeah.
are you still feeling? Sorry, not still. Are you feeling any fear around
Hmm.
the path that you've chosen, or have you kind of let that
Um,
go? Like you're out in the
that
wild now.
Yeah. Look, I can't say I'm not. Like, there are days when that fear creeps in. That's how I would describe it. It's like it creeps in. But because I know like how dangerous that fear is for me now, and like what it did to me like in the beginning when I moved here, and again like everything else that was going on, like obviously it was a huge adjustment moving somewhere, but because I know like how, yeah, dangerous that fear can be for me, like I'm a little bit better at managing it. And like I said, like I'm still learning. Like there are days where it's really like last week, like I had a bit of a blip where I was just like, like this is just so hard. Like it's so much, like often, like sometimes I might think like, maybe it would just be easier if I did just have a normal job, but yeah, I've just gotten a lot better at like shutting those thoughts away. Cause like if it was easy, I think like everyone would be doing it, but it's not easy. And I guess
Yeah,
that's,
this is part of the price you pay, right? I guess
yeah,
for
that's it.
pursuing this, it doesn't come easy. It comes at a cost, and that cost is the mental struggle
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's it.
But remember, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah.
I'm a little busy at the moment.
Yeah, that's
Just
it. I'm
go
gonna,
and wait over there. Go and just
I
wait
will.
over there.
I'll be in the studio saying that to myself a lot, I'm sure.
Let me know how you get on. I'll be really
I
keen to
will.
hear if because we might be onto something there, and we could just roll that out and make a
Yeah, let's
fortune in
make it a
self-help
thing.
books.
Make some
Yeah,
merch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Emily, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time there. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyable
Yeah, I did
conversation, and
too.
yeah, I'm glad that you're having a lot of fun doing what it is that you're meant to be doing.
Yeah. Thank you so, so much. Thanks for having me. I've really had a really good time.
Oh, nice one. That's great to hear. I'll let you crack on with your day, and
Yeah.
I'll speak to you soon.
Amazing. Speak to you soon. Have a good
Take it
day.
easy. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.